Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Morning Tea where we sit in our sleepwear and talk about current events. Today's tea is hot Earl Grey tea from the Mountain Witch Tea Company. I know it's hot, you guys. I felt like trying something new. Melanated! For those of you who don't know, I moved back to California a little over a year ago after living in New York City for 6 years. I always say that I live in LA, but the truth is I do not live in Los Angeles. I live about an hour and a half east of Los Angeles in a county known as San Bernardino. So yes, I live in the city next door to San Bernardino City. I'm still in San Bernardino County, where the mass shootings at the Inland Regional Center happened last Wednesday, exactly a week from today, actually. And first of all, I just want to say that my heart and prayer goes out to the 14 families that were affected with a death due to this violent crime, and for the numerous families and people who were affected by it, who were in the regional center, who were adjacent to the regional center, who just had to deal with this horrific act of violence. So a little bit about what happened in San Bernardino last Wednesday after a holiday party, or at the beginning of a holiday party, because the shooting happened at 11 a.m. An employee at the regional center went home, got his wife a lot of rounds of ammunition, a pipe bomb or two, and they dressed up in all black. Unclear whether or not this was a direct act of terrorism. From what the investigators are talking about now, it seems as though the male Farouk, the guy who worked at the regional center, was an employee of the Inland Regional Center. It looks like he had been planning something, they don't know what, and perhaps this shooting of this holiday party was sort of impromptu, because he was at the holiday party, went home, came back with his wife and lots of ammunition, came back into the celebration and just started shooting and ended up killing 14 people and injuring 35. It's unclear the direct motive. Some people are calling it an act of terrorism. Some people are saying that it's unclear whether or not it's terrorism, or if he was actually planning some sort of terrorist attack later on in the future and this kind of just happened. Maybe he got fed up or something happened at the party and it incited him to go further with it. ISIS is taking credit, not in a, yes, we planned this sort of way, but in a sort of bravo, our brethren did something sort of way. So it isn't clear. And of course, ISIS would take credit for this in any way they could because it would only help their cause. I want to talk a little bit more about what the criteria is for something like this to be considered an act of terrorism. Now, one of the things that it needs to prove, or it needs to show, is that there was some sort of intent to control government or to control some body of people. But with this act, there's no evidence that shows that there was any intent to sort of invoke terror on a specific group of people to have some sort of outcome or to hold. There needs to show that there was some sort of attempt to intimidate or coerce some sort of civilian population. And with this shooting, it's not quite clear what the exact motive was. There have been FBI and investigators have come forth to say that Farouk and his wife may have had contact in 2012 with some persons known to be having direct contact with terrorists. They themselves have had no direct contact with terrorists. They weren't on the FBI's watch list or anything like that. So now there's a lot of talk about allowing Muslim people into the country because his wife had only been in the country for 2 years. Farouk had been traveling back and forth to Saudi Arabia for the last couple of years, which, if he's from there, then that makes perfect sense. I'm not sure where he's from. But right now, I think it's too early to say. There's not enough evidence to say that it was a specific terrorist attack, but there is enough evidence to say that Farouk was planning something because he had a lot of ammunition in the back of the car that he was gunned down in, and he had a lot of ammunition in his home. It's a really delicate and weird situation, and there's a lot of people who are just immediately polarized by the whole situation, but the jury is still out for me, waiting to get the final verdict as to exactly what the intent was for this specific instance. Like I said, he may have been planning something that was to be a terrorist attack, but at this specific instance, there's no evidence proving that this attack at the Inland Regional Center was a terrorist attack. It's definitely very sad and super close to home and like really hard to digest. My job was actually shut down because where I work is about 3 or 4 blocks away from the Inland Regional Center. I pass it every single day when I go to work. And on my way to work every day since then, there's a large vigil that is set up. So it is a very unifying time for us here in the Inland Empire, and it is a very pivotal time for us here in the Inland Empire. Let's talk about Donald Trump. So this is what I didn't talk about last week. So last week, or the week of the 30th, Donald Trump met with 100 Black pastors, leaders of churches and communities here in the United States. And it's really unclear as to what happened inside of this meeting. He being Donald Trump, came out and said that there was a lot of love passed between people. There was a lot of love in the room or something like that. But I really would love to have been a fly on the wall in that room. Because look, what were they talking about? Like, what could they possibly have anything to say to Donald Trump? I mean, like, he's just so racist. Like, I just don't, like, I don't know, girl. That remains to be seen. Hopefully something good came out of it. But he's a lot of love from who? Yeah, apparently there are some pastors who are going to endorse him, which that's fine if that's their choice to do. But they need to know that Donald Trump is not going to be the president of the United States. And if he is, it's going to only be because people are super racist, like, and don't know anything about politics or our American government. Because he made some comments this week saying that for people who are Muslim, like, you have to like state your religion before you are allowed into this country. And that's so crazy and ridiculous and against everything that the founding fathers of this country are for. I mean, as most of you obviously know, this country was founded on religious freedom, right? The Quakers came here, and the rest of the people who came here and followed and killed all the Native Americans came here so that they could be free of religious persecution in England. So that is like built into our Constitution, that anybody that comes here can practice their own faith. Whether or not people agree with that, it's still the basis of the Constitution here in the United States. Freedom of religion is pretty big next to freedom of speech. So yes, Donald Trump wants to ban Muslims from the US, which is the stupidest thing ever. And he has the GOP by the balls, really, because the GOP wants to say and wants to denounce him and wants to push him away, but they honestly can't, because Donald Trump is still threatening to run as an independent. Now, you guys are like, what does that matter if he runs as an independent? Won't it help? No, because Donald Trump has garnered a lot of support from the Republican Party. If he goes independent, those supporters might go with him. And if they go with him, they're going to take votes away from the Republicans. So if Donald Trump leaves and goes independent, runs as an independent candidate, then the GOP will be left with whatever candidate they have, but those votes that would have normally gone to the Republican Party will go with Donald Trump. And that's going to make it so that for sure the Republican is going to lose and for sure the Democrat is going to win. They all know that Donald Trump is a loose cannon, and there's no guarantee that he's not going to go independent. He doesn't owe them anything. He's not a politician. He doesn't have a career after this in politics unless the people want him to, unless the people vote for him. He doesn't have to have all this political backing because he has his own money. So he's a threat. So nobody in the GOP wants to truly alienate him. They're saying that his sentiments, his anti-Muslim sentiments, they're not saying what they need to say, which was what Democrats are saying, which is what the mayor of London is saying, which is what Congress is saying. His comment is just not the comment of a president. Like, he can't be president because he doesn't know how to politic. He doesn't know how to be a politician. He doesn't know how to bridge the gap. He's going to be a very terrible president. And the problem is that he's up in the polls. He's a front runner in the race. So that's what the problem is. There's a lot of things happening with Trump, and he's in a very, he has all the cards in his hand, and everyone's just kind of waiting for him to fizzle out, and he just seemingly is not fizzling out. If he wins the nomination, the Republicans are going to 150% lose the White House in the next run. They're going to lose it. There's no way. The smart Republicans will not vote Donald Trump into the presidency. He's going to be like the Sarah Palin effect, like where people who are Republican can't vote an idiot into office. But whatever happens, the Republicans will lose the race if Donald Trump becomes the nominee. So here's just a little question. I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but in, I think it's Finland, there's this their Christmas lore, or their Christmas celebration celebrates Sinterklaas and Zwarte Piet, which Sinterklaas is obviously Santa Claus, and then Zwarte Piet is Black Pete, translated into English. And basically, Santa Claus runs around with this little black kid who's dressed like an elf, sort of, and they deliver presents. So in their culture, Zwarte Piet is like Santa's helper, and he's like always singing and dancing and shit, right? And so sometimes people will dress up as Zwarte Piet. The problem is that they go on into full-on blackface with the red lips, with the red lipstick and full-on blackface. And, it doesn't really affect us here in the United States because most people don't even know about it. But now that we have like Twitter and social media that can show us these images from other countries, and when people are dressing up as Zwarte Piet, politician who dressed up as him and then went online, tweeted the photo in English or tweeted the photo and then in English and in his language wrote some sort of celebrating Christmas, don't hate, it's all love. And it's just that they really don't understand our culture. So what do you guys think about other cultures who dress in blackface, who do it unabashedly and don't care about what that means? I personally feel like it's not in the US, and so I can't, they know that it's mean and they know that it's hurtful to us, but they don't really know. They don't really know. Like, they're white. Like, white people don't really know what people of color deal with. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not making excuses for it. I'm just choosing not to get upset over it the way that some people get upset over it. Because I'm just I can't deal with that battle because I'm not in Finland, I'm here. So I just need to stop the white people here from doing it. That's my first modus operandi, So I just want to know what you guys think about it. Look it up. I'll have maybe a link down below or something, and you guys can check it out and see what you think. Do you care if people of other countries that you have nothing to do with and nothing to do with you carrying on traditions that don't stem from American hatred, but still sort of stem from this white supremacy, let's make fun of these colored people, or let's dress up as colored people type things? Because think about it, there's no black people in Finland, so how do they even know? I'm sure there's Africans there, because there's Africans everywhere, there's Chinese everywhere, but they don't know. They've never enslaved, they don't have slavery in their country. They don't know. They don't really know the ramifications of what they're doing. They're just doing it because they're white and they can, right? So the next thing that's happened is that 37 civilians were killed in Afghanistan yesterday. There was some sort of Taliban situation at the airport about 300 miles away from the capital of Kabul, and the Afghan National Police joined in. There was gunfire back and forth, and there were 9 terrorists that were killed and a couple wounded. And it's just really sad that they have to we think that things are happening here. We only think that the Muslims are coming here and doing stuff, but they're doing stuff to their own people too. They're attacking their own countries from within as well. So the Taliban is still doing its thug fizzle in Afghanistan, while ISIS is doing their thug fizzle everywhere else in the world. And it's just a lot, it's a lot happening. So my heart and prayer goes out to those 37 victims and their families. In Delaware, a police officer was indicted for kicking a man in the face when he was already on his knees with his hands up. So officers responded to some sort of conflict somewhere in Delaware, and they were told, I guess, that this man was armed. And as soon as the police got near him, he got on the ground and put his hands up, and he was on his knees, and an officer came up to him with his gun in his hand and kicked him in the face and broke his jaw. And so a jury recently just acquitted the officer of excessive force. The officer was saying that he meant to kick him in the chest or meant to kick him in the stomach, but it was all caught on dash cam. And it just doesn't make any sense to me why he went to kick him when it was very clear that he had already given up and that he had his hands up in the air and that kicking him was just excessive force. So, I mean, I hope that the gentleman who was kicked is able to get him in civil court. I don't know how that works with police officers, but I hope that he's able to attack him in civil court, because something needs to happen. Like, you can't just go up and kick somebody in the face. And, the same sort of arguments that he felt like his life was in danger or whatever, even though he had a gun out and the guy was on his knees with his hands up, he still felt it necessary to kick him in the face. These people, boy, they do not care. They do not care. That's it for this episode of Morning Tea, you guys. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or you feel like there's something that needs to be talked about, something that I didn't talk about this week in this episode of Morning Tea, please go ahead and let me know and leave it down below. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Have a fantastic day. Bye.